All right, class. So here we are. We're going to talk about Operation Restore Hope, the United States in Somalia. Hopefully, the screencast works out. I'll try to go through it quickly. I did give you guys a copy of the presentation so you guys can look at it to fill in your note sheet. There we go. We got full screen now, hopefully. Here you guys see there's the map of Somalia. So you should be able to see my pointer here. Again, Somalia is on the eastern coast, the Horn of Africa. You guys see again Middle East oil pathway, and of course going into the Suez Canal, connecting traffic there to the Mediterranean. You guys are probably most familiar with like Somali pirates and things like the Captain Phillips movie. All right, so you guys see a little bit more political map here, and there is Mogadishu, Somalia, right there on the coast of the Indian Ocean. And this is where the battle is going to take place here in Somalia that we're concerned with on October 3rd, 1993. So just brief history, World War II. After World War II, Somalia becomes a protectorate of Great Britain, is eventually achieves its own independence in the 60s. During the 70s, there's a military dictatorship under Mohammed Sayed Barre. He's in control during the 1980s when the Cold War kind of fizzles out there a little bit. It becomes a little bit more or a little less important to the United States and the Soviet Union. There is a civil war that breaks out in 1991. Barre is ousted from leadership. And of course, this battle, has serious impacts on agriculture, food, water distribution, and you kind of end up with factions throughout the country backing different warlords, different clans, and it's really based upon like the access that they have to resources, water, food. And as a result, there is a famine that takes place and kills approximately 300,000 people. UN Security Council has authorized a limited peacekeeping mission. The United States sends in Marines, and along with other United Nations countries like big ones, Pakistan. Um, we completely disregard the actual civil war that's going on. The job there is to hand out food to stop people from starving to death. Warlord who ruled the country. A warlord, of course, one of your vocab words, a person who um, rules the military and civilian control or civil control over an area. Armed forces are loyal to the warlord, not to an actual government. So there's an alliance of warlords that kind of consolidates power, and the guy who's in charge of those warlords is Mohammed Farad Adid. You'll see his name spelled a couple different ways. We'll use this spelling here. He declared himself the president of Somalia. Okay, so in 1992, President Bush authorizes an Operation Restore Hope. The mission is just to restore order in Somalia. His predecessor, or actually, yeah, the guy who takes over from him, Bill Clinton, right? Because we have an election in November 1992. Bill Clinton takes office in January 1993. So he's going to continue the mission when he takes office. Many Somalians resented this international force, and there's some contention between UN forces and the locals in the area. There is also rumors of Al Qaeda operating there inside of Somalia, and eventually. The faction loyal to Adid, they come into direct contact with Somalia. June 5th, 1993, one of the deadliest attacks occurs. There are 24 UN soldiers who are killed in Mogadishu, which is an area controlled by Adid. Um, those are actually Pakistani UN soldiers. So the United States under Clinton authorizes a separate mission, military agenda separate from the unified task force. We send Task Force Ranger and Delta. Their job is to basically hunt out Adid, capture him, and restore order. Okay, so throughout this process, let me see. Can I move my thing? No. Throughout this process, there's different raids that are conducted, and we're basically just trying to hunt out a deed. So it's find some leaders, capture them, hopefully they give information, so on and so forth. On October 3rd, they get credible information that two of Deed's top lieutenants are meeting. They identify the location across from the Olympic Hotel near the Bakar Market, which is the heart of a Deed's territory. You guys can see the men and materials that take part in this operation. And here you guys see a great layout. Again, bloodiest battle in UN peacekeeping operations. 18 American soldiers are killed, 78 are wounded. American and Nigerian are captured. Approximately 500 Somalis are killed, 1,000 are wounded. So mission, pretty simple, pretty standard, really. Helicopter raid, although it takes place during the day, which is not ideal. So you have 4 Ranger chalks. Chalk 1, Chalk 2, Chalk 3, and Chalk 4. And the job is these 4 chalks are going to fast rope down, secure the perimeter around this building. Okay, the target building, Delta Force is going to land assault helicopters in the front and on the roof, but they're going to assault from the top down, bottom up, meeting in the middle, securing the building, and hopefully capturing those bad guys. Then they have a convoy of vehicles, lightly armored, okay, not the armor that's going to stop a bullet, and they're waiting on the other side of the Olympic Hotel. Once the building is clear and secure, the convoy will roll up in front, load up everybody from the helicopters, and then make its way out. Okay, mission's supposed to take about 30 minutes. Mission begins at 3:42. It's not going to end until about 6 o'clock then the next day. Okay, Chalk 4 roped in, 1 blow north. Private First Class Blackburn falls 70 feet. He needs to be evacuated. Although the initial success or the initial mission is a success, the trucks begin taking fire. There is an element, a convoy that does there's a convoy that does take Private Blackburn to safety to the military hospital. There are roadblocks that begin to be erected by the Somalis, people loyal to a deed. And Chief Warrant Officer Wilcox, Blackhawk, is shot down and hit. Okay? So Delta has the detainees. It's loaded up on the Humvees. A rescue for that first helicopter begins. There's an element under Sergeant Eversman that moves to the crash site along with, I believe it's Chalk 1. They move to the crash site as well. They set up a perimeter. However, the convoy on the ground can't make it. They get pinned down. They have to turn around. Okay, here you guys see a little map. Again, they're so close to the site, but they can't make it. During this time, they do end up fast roping in a medical team, okay, search and rescue crew to the crash site, and Wilcox crash site is secured, okay, but it is in danger of being overrun. Mike Durant, his Blackhawk is overhead in support. It gets hit by an RPG. It crashes, and you guys can see again, it crashes further away outside of this, and we cannot get a crew there. Durant went down south of the fighting. The Blackhawk landed upright. Air rescue was already at the first crash site, so there's no ground reinforcements that can get to Durant. There are 2 Delta Force snipers circling overhead. Sergeant First Class Randy Shugart and Master Sergeant Gary Gordon are Delta snipers. They ask repeatedly to be inserted to provide security until further help arrives. They're 2 guys with sniper rifles and sidearms. Repeatedly, access is refused. Eventually, it gets passed up the chain of command, and General Garrison gives them permission, asking them if they know what they're asking for, knowing that there's probably not going to be any resupply. Durant and his co-pilot regain consciousness. Durant has a broken leg and crushed vertebrae. His co-pilot has a crushed vertebrae. Shugart Gordon get Durant, Frank, and Staff Sergeant Bill Cleveland and Sergeant Tommy Field out of the Blackhawk. Somalis are closing in. There is no additional support coming. The site is overrun, and all those participants except for Durant are killed. Okay, Durant is captured and taken prisoner. Shugart and Gordon are awarded the Medal of Honor for their actions, and in fact, in infantry basic training, their story is still told today. Rescue does eventually arrive in the form of 10th Mountain and UN forces. They come in with armored personnel carriers. It took them until the morning time to get there. Then they had to cut the other pilots out of the first crash site, and then they returned to the Pakistani base. On the way out, U.S. Force Ranger has to actually run on foot because there's not room. This becomes known as the Mogadishu Mile. Here you see Mike Durant. He is actually turned over to the Red Cross eventually. Hold on one second, buddy. He is turned over and he's brought to Germany, and he fully recovers. And in fact, he's in some of the videos afterwards about Blackhawk Down. Here you guys see some of the awful pictures of Shugart and Gordon being drugged through the streets. Of course, Americans see this, and we're supposed to be there helping these people, and look at what is happening. American foreign policy afterwards. This becomes a cautionary tale. Whenever we consider sending troops to a combat zone, that cry of remember Somalia. Under Clinton, we are going to conduct a series of bombings, raids to different areas, very reluctant to send actual ground troops. Americans were repulsed of the images. We do withdraw our forces. Marines are completely removed as well from 1995 as part of that UN mission, and the UN also withdraws. Okay, end of the UN effort. Other results: Defense Secretary Les Aspin is resigned. He's blamed for denying the U.S. permission to use tanks because he thought that tanks don't really give the whole peacekeeping vibe. Okay, hopefully you guys learned a lot. Sorry to go quick. Fill in that question sheet. I see that.